All right, here we go. Take 3 of the new JFK Show. Tonight, we've got Rod MacKenzie, and Dr. Fetzer is going to explain to you about our special guest tonight. And we also have Larry Bear and Don Fox. We have a full crew. Go ahead, Dr. Fetzer.
Thanks very much, Gary. Rod MacKenzie holds a unique position in the history of the assassination because he ran a safe house for participants and got to know many of those who were involved in the assassination up close and personal. He has a book online at Amazon.com, The Men That Don't Fit In, by Roderick MacKenzie, edited by Richard Hook. It's quite a fascinating piece of work. It begins with a brief summary of the book, where defense, intelligence, security, asset, mafia associate Rod MacKenzie, first-person account of his Cuba, New Orleans, Chicago, and Dallas adventures on a need-to-know basis as a CIA-trained covert fake ID expert and FBI 5 safe house manager for the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency. His personal relationships with nearly all of the shooters and spotters in the JFK hit, and many of the organizers and other shady characters involved in the U.S. government agencies, ONI, CIA, DISC, FBI, the Mossad, Mob, JFK hit parade. And the week following the hit, Mac Wallace's confession to McKenzie of having managed all the JFK hit teams and now LBJ, Nixon, Hoover, big oil, business, finance, military complex, and disgruntled U.S. government agency big shots met the evening of 11/21. This is the night before the assassination at Clint Murchison's Dallas mansion, and signed off on the killing of JFK the following day. Also included is JFK researcher, author, editor Richard M. Hook's detailed account of how the shooting went down and Lee Oswald's endgame movements, very possibly the most accurate description of the JFK hit and the truth about Lee Harvey Oswald, U.S. government patsy scapegoat, who Mr. Hook has proven never fired a shot on November 22nd, 1963. The title is derived from a poem by Robert W. Service entitled The Men That Don't Fit In. There's a race of men that don't fit in, a race that can't stay still. So they break the hearts of kith and kin and roam the world at will. They range the field and they rove the flood and they climb the mountain's crest. Theirs is the curse of the gypsy blood, and they don't know how to rest. If they just went straight, they might go far. They are strong and brave and true, but they're always tired of the things that are, and they want the strange and new. They say, could I find my proper groove, what a deep mark I would make. So they chop and change, and each fresh move is only a fresh mistake. And each forgets as he strips and runs with a brilliant, fitful pace. It's the steady, quiet, plodding ones who win in the lifelong race. And each forgets that his youth has fled, forgets that his prime is past, till he stands one day with a hope that's dead in the glare of the truth at last. He has failed, he has failed, he has missed his chance, he has just done things by half. Life's been a jolly good joke on him, and now is the time to laugh. Ha ha! He is one of the Legion lost. He was never meant to win. He's a rolling stone, and it's bred in the bone. He's a man who won't fit in. Now, I want to mention 3 of the reviews of the book on Amazon.com to give our readers, our listeners, a sense of what this is all about. If I could give this 10 stars, I would, but beware of coarse language. If I could give this 10 stars, I would. I really admire the then 83-year-old Rod MacKenzie for sharing this story with the world. It takes a desire to put the country above yourself that many people would not have the courage to do. Beware of the coarse language, but that is how this man is. Mr. Hook helped some, but this is really the story of a man who lived through JFK's murder. We are very fortunate he didn't commit suicide too. Caution. If you believe the Warren Commission's low nut and single magic bullet, you probably will not be able to recognize truth when you read it. In that case, don't bother. I needed to know the truth and have not been able to swallow the bilge in the Warren report. I love the truth. Here's a second. The book is self-published, and I found Mr. McKenzie to be a bit brash, but he was, however, a former Army Ranger. I wasn't surprised to read that he met the late Dallas police officer J.D. Tippit and LBJ's hitman Mac Wallace at the Egyptian Lounge in Dallas upon arriving in Dallas to open a safe house. His story is fascinating and believable as names, many recognizable to those who have studied or researched the assassination, are there. However, on page 97, he identified former Dallas Deputy Sheriff Roger Craig as being a member of the hit team on the roof of the Dallas County Records building. This fact did not cause me to dismiss his whole story, however. As he stated up front, his memory was not serving him well all the time nowadays, 72 years old at the time, and he was relying on notes and diary entries. All in all, I found him more believable than James Files, who's identified as a conspirator, but in a less diminished role. Researcher Richard Hook's contribution led to a 5 versus 4-star rating. His work is indeed outstanding here. Mr. Hook even correct Deputy Sheriff's actual location at 12:28 p.m. CST on 11/22/63 on page 149. I highly recommend this book. Deeper and more searching. The Rosetta Stone for JFK assassination researchers. This book is easy to read and understand, even though it is an unusually complex story that provides clues, identities, motives, and terms that help readers and researchers understand the abject treachery, planning, scope, including global, and symbolism connected with the murder of President John F. Kennedy. Roderick A. McKenzie III, a.k.a. Ward Alexander, born in 1934, is the author of this primary source self-published 219-page work, edited by JFK researcher Richard M. Hook in 2015. In 1963, the author was connected with the Chicago Mafia, New Orleans mob, and an agent for the Defense Intelligence Security Command, DISC, part of the National Security Agency that included Perm Index, aka Permanent Industrial Expositions, a front organization for the CIA, when he was transferred to Dallas to run a safe house. Supposedly, this hiding place was to assist Cuban refugees affiliated with a resistance to Cuba movement. A former decorated veteran, he was street smart, somewhat politically naive, with counterfeiting skills, and an accomplished circus acrobat. His patriotic fervor had brought him in contact with members of the anti-Castro cadres whose sympathies he shared. While engaged with his safekeeping endeavor, the author remained unafraid that the planning and scheming done at the safe house in his absence was actually for a hit on JFK until after the fact. Compounded with his epiphany was a revelation to him a week later when, in a drunken stupor, Malcolm, a.k.a. Mac Wallace, one of the shooters and LBJ's personal hitman, confided the complete inception, planning, and the names of those involved with the events of 22 November 1963, including the fact that it was LBJ who ordered the hit. It is a credit to McKenzie's cunning, personal abilities, common sense, and good luck that allowed him to keep a low profile, living abroad while managing a circus until he felt it was safe because of what he knew to return to the United States. It is good fortune of his contemporaries and posterity that he's been able to share this incredible story with us. The author also reveals how some of those involved were duped into carrying out their deadly tasks through disinformation. However, many of those involved did so willingly, especially some who were members of the Dallas Police Department. According to Bobby Hargis, motorcycle police officer for the Dallas Police Department, who was next to Jackie Kennedy at the time of the location, he knew that Lee Harvey Oswald did not kill JFK. Note well, this is revealed by reading the book also. Hargis also stated that JFK had been shot from the front, that the president's blood and brains were splattered all over him, and that the murder of JFK was the greatest thing he ever seen. Hargis was a 32nd degree Mason. Steve Morgan, this commentator, met him, and he told me this in front of a witness near Old Dime Box, Texas, on Sunday, 16 August 1981, the day after he quit the Dallas Police Department the first time the previous day after working there for 28 years. This is an excellent book that I highly recommend. As the title to this comment declares, it is the Rosetta Stone for both readers and researchers of JFK's murder. The last chapter provides a cast of characters of those involved. Notably missing from the text, but I don't believe it was that deliberate, was the fact that Bill Moyers, born in 1934, a journalist and American political commentator who was the deputy director of the Peace Corps on 22 November 1963, was a person who ordered the bulletproof bubble top of the presidential limousine removed that day. After the murder of JFK, Moyers became a special assistant to LBJ. Richard M. Hook, JFK researcher and editor, has provided an excellent and suggested reading list. Another salient feature about this primary source publication is the ability to extrapolate data from the contents that lead to understanding previously unknown or unreported facts. Dealey Plaza, for example, is the site of the first and oldest Masonic temple in Dallas. JFK was killed at the 33-degree parallel lateral on Friday, November 22nd, 1963, or 11/22/63, where 11 plus 22 equals 33. This was an occult assassination of the 35th President of the United States, John F. Kennedy. Add this book to your library and read it. You won't be disappointed. Obviously, our guest tonight knows the official story is complete hokum, which of course has Lee Oswald firing 3 shots from the 6th floor of the Texas Book Depository, scoring 2 hits by the revised version, and killing the president, wounding them both, but then killing the president with a shot to the head. We know from independent research that JFK appears to have been hit at least 4 times, hit in the back from a shot that appears to have been fired from the top of the county records building, hit in the throat by a shot fired from inside the triple underpass that passed through the windshield. Then after the driver, William Greer, pulled the limousine to a halt to make sure he would be killed in the back of the head by a shot fired from the Dow Tex, and then finally by a shot to the right temple fired from the intersection of the triple underpass and the picket fence. We know, in other words, that the actual shooting event looked much more like this, and we're extremely grateful to have Rod MacKenzie with us today to discuss all of these issues. Rod, I can't tell you how grateful we are for you to join us tonight on the new JFK Show.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Rod, say a few words and we'll get your image right here.
Okay. Well, I don't know what I'm doing actually, but
There you go.
we can play it by ear.
Rod, why don't let's begin by, how did you get involved in the safe house business? How were you picked to manage this safe house?
Story. Well, you have to go back to when I got involved with, came out of the Army and got involved with William Morgan, William Alexander Morgan, who you can look up on Google and find out who he is. He's a soldier in the Army that had been dishonorably discharged, and we got together after I got out of the Army in San Francisco. I noticed he was making more money than he should have, and he took me on as an apprentice burglar. And we were working for the mob at the time, the Eliotos, in San Francisco. And we did quite a bit of work for them. And one night we were told that we were persona non gratis in San Francisco. The mob wanted us to leave because they were onto us. So we went down to Los Angeles, and that's where I met John Rosselli. And he put us to work the same capacity, and peeling safes for the mob, getting whatever they wanted and taking the rest for ourselves. And then as far as Las Vegas, even to New Orleans one time, and living in Tarzana, California. I met a lot of circus people there, and my family went back to wild animal farm circus people. So it was, I knew people that were there, and it was a good place for me to be. And Morgan got itchy feet, wanted to go back to Cuba where he'd been before, and he'd been involved in work for the revolution, for the students' revolution there in Cuba, whatever they were. I didn't know that much about them. And so we cut across the country, and somewhere along the way, I went to Atterbury's high sway pole, 120-foot sway pole that bends back and forth in fairs for the carnivals and circus. I went to work on that. He went to Cuba, but we kept in touch. And that season ended, and I went down to. I decided I'd go to Cuba too. We had these references from John Rosselli and Louis McWillie, and I went down and got a job at the El Presidente Casino Hotel, and as a service bartender. I ended up, within a few weeks, I was running guns and radios and stuff like that out to Morgan. Go out with cane breaks and bring the stuff out there and go back and work at the Presidente. And I started making ID. I had a natural bent for art. And they were lousy. And evidently Batista's people realized what I was doing. And this fellow named Abe McCoy sent me over to him. He said, well, how would you like to really be accomplished in identification? He said, he'll send you to a school. Well, yeah, they're going to get me anyway. I wasn't interested in going to Mellicong and the prison and getting tortured like they did. So I went up to Fort Detrick, Maryland on their nickel and learned, so it was 40-day school. Seals and flaps is what they called it. It was an identification school. And I learned everything they had to teach. They sent me back down to JM Wave in Miami, which was the people who were fighting against the Easter at that time. And I went down there and they took me back over to Cuba and said, oh, you're not good here. We've got a deal for you. You know all about carnivals. So I didn't know that much about carnivals, but I'd been around them all my life. But in the animal capacity with a petting zoo, crazy. They said, well, you know all about carnivals, and I'm game for anything. 20-something-year-old kid. And so, okay, yeah, I do. We're going to send you up to Chicago, and you give you whatever you want. You go out on these carnivals. We'll send people to you. You put them to work on the back end of your games or whatever you have, and they're going to hide out on your show. Well, what you did in those days was you booked onto a show with whatever you had. I had a girls' show, which was provided in Chicago, and 3 games that I knew how to work, and a petting zoo. So I went out with this real nice equipment that they made me in Chicago, and that was Sam Giacana. And the Showman's Union made all this stuff first class. Sent me out with a truck that formerly housed bodies for this man that they sent with me to watch over me, LaMotta, Jack LaMotta. And this thing, he told me, they kept in the summer when the bodies would rot, they put them in this freezer truck and keep them there all till the winter came and then get rid of them. But that was just one of those stories. There's a million anecdotes. But,
of course, in that involvement, working with the mob, you were also getting contacts with the CIA because they were working.
Well, that was who it wasn't CIA, it's DISC, Defense Industrial Security
Command.
Right. It's hard for me to get that in my mind at this age either. And that was who Abe worked for, and later on my handlers all the way through those people. But we did take in agency people. We took in people from the mob. We took in all types of people. They'd come in on this. There was a guy named Reverend Bowen. He used to bring shooters that had been out killing people, and they'd come in and sit on the carnival for a week, a day, a month, and I don't think anybody stayed over a month except Martinez. She stayed with us for a longer period, but all these things go off into different directions.
Yes. Well, how did you come to be given the assignment of the safe house that I take you originally thought was for Cuban immigrants, people who wanted to come to or escape from Cuba?
Well, that's not in the book. That's not the way it is. It was for people that were hot on agencies and the mob, that had done something wrong, had been put on the shelf for what they didn't want to knock them off. They just put them on the shelf on that carnival.
To cool off. To cool off.
Cool off, right. And we're traveling every week to a different spot with these people. There's virtually no way of finding anybody on a carnival, especially in those days when nobody gave a social security number or anything like that in those days to go to work. And we're taking people in for 59, 60, 61, and 62, almost 4 years. We played the same circuits all the way around from Tampa Fair to Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa. Then we didn't go into Canada with that show. That was Royal American. Then we'd go back to the East Coast and work up the East Coast to Ottawa in Canada, and then back across down to Phoenix, Arizona. That was our route. And we're working a week in different towns and on different shows. So that was mainly to keep the people hidden, but also whatever we were making, we were keeping that money. There was no way we couldn't go wrong. We had 4 trucks, 3 trailers, a girls' show. It got pretty big. And coming back in on that last year, coming down into from New Mexico to Arizona, I turned over one of the trucks, and I had a printing press and the whole setup in the back with my ID factory. And that went strewn over the desert. And a state trooper picked me up. I had a blackout. They took me to Wilcox, Arizona, to the hospital there. And the FBI come in because all this IDs all over, passports, blank passports, you name it, all types of documents, papers, DD-214s from the Army and the Navy, Marines. We had all this crap. And first they took me back to the carnival, and they sat me down there at Douglas, Arizona. And I'm sitting there playing that week, and then they come down and formally busted me. Took me to Tucson, Arizona, to the pokey there, which was underground. And they put me in there. I got a call out to Rosselli. To Chancey Holt, actually, and he got to Rosselli. And wasn't a week later, midnight, they let you out of the county jail there. And I come up out of this driveway, like into the desert with about 10 other guys. And you got to walk back to town 20 miles, typical Arizona. And so it's midnight. It's cool. But there's a truck out there, and the guy says, "Hey, are you McKenzie?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "I've been sent to get you. My name's Orville LeBaron. Now, if you ever get a chance, read the book 5 O'Clock Murders, because Orville LeBaron got pretty famous as a Mormon polygamist that, he got in a lot of trouble, let's put it that way. And he took me down into Agua Prieta, which is right over the border from Douglas, Arizona. And he had a compound there. And there's hot and cold running women, all his wives. And I'm set up with one of them. And it's very nice. I'm enjoying myself. Stayed there a month. One day they come and ruined it all and said, you're going to be running a safe house. And he said, in Texas. So Bethel Raycroft, that's the girl's name. She drove me all the way to Houston. Said, you'll meet somebody that you'll know. Oh, it turned out to be Dave Ferry. And
Rod, before we go forward, Larry would like to ask a question. Larry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. First of all, good evening, Rod.
I'm not a good speaker. I'm sorry.
You're doing great, Rod. You're doing great.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm a great admirer of your work, and I'm a very, very good friend of Richard Hook. We did a lot of work together back in 2013 and 2014. We have actually published a book together.
Great researcher.
The Man with the Mona Lisa Smile, which were the first versions of some of the chapters in my book. But what I wanted to talk about, and I'm fascinated, but you're talking about Chauncey Holt, and Chauncey Holt also talks about in his book about being in the circus business and, the trapeze artist.
I knew each other there.
Yeah. And also the fact that Chauncey Holt talks in his book about not only about talking about that safe house that you're talking about, but also that Joseph Ball, one of the attorneys, one of the real creeps of the Warren Commission, ran a safe house in Acapulco and Mexico, where a lot of the operatives ended up spending, great time with after the assassination. So
that was Reverend Bourne, wasn't it?
No, Joseph Ball actually he's the one that.
No, I mean the safe house itself was run by a guy named some kind of preacher named Bowen, B-O-W.
Oh, yes, exactly. That's right, exactly.
That was the man that brought me.
You're right. Yeah. Great. That's because Chauncey. What did you get I'm sure that you met Chauncey.
We worked at the badge company together in Los Angeles.
Right, and Chauncey is known to have been also distributing fake IDs behind the picket fence.
Well, we helped each other.
Right.
We helped each other a lot.
Do you know?
Don Rosselli put the two of us together when I first went into LA. Mm-hmm. That's how I met Chauncey. I called him.
Later on, if we have a chance, I'd like to maybe ask you about some of those Cubans. I was wondering if you knew for a fact that maybe Rafael Cruz might have been part of that whole group. Okay.
We know that to be the case, but yes, we'll come back. We want to get to the heart of the story and then come back to the questions such as those you have.
Yeah.
Rod, please proceed. You're saying you met David Ferry.
Where was I?
You met David Ferry.
Oh, yeah, we went in. I went to go in with this gorgeous girl at the Travelers Hotel, which is a crummy carnival hotel. And I'm going to meet this guy that I'm supposed to know, which I did know. That was David Ferry. He comes along with this Latin guy that was a little on the gay side. And him and then in the back seat is Rogers, Frederick Rogers, who later killed his mother and father.
Right.
Yeah.
Featured in the book, The Man on the Grassy Knoll. He was the first of the three tramps, yes.
Now, all of these nice people I know.
Yes.
And so I ride all the way. The next morning, I leave Bethel. She goes back with her little car to Earl LeBaron, and we go north. And they're not telling me where we're going. They're just going to tell me I'm going to run a safe house. And so I ride with these guys, and they're hopped up to the gills with pennies. Of course, you get a penny in those days for 3 cents. And we're going up sideways and went up the highway to north. I didn't know exactly where. We go to Dallas. Come into Dallas, he gives me a shirt with a banana leaf pattern on it. Put this on, you go in that club there, and you see a guy. Now they're leaving, they're going elsewhere. And you don't ask where somebody's going with these guys. You just,
Right.
they give me this banana thing in my valise. I had a small duffel bag. And they got out. And we meet from this place, the Egyptian Lounge in Dallas. And I go in and I put on the shirt, and here's a guy with the same shirt on.
Right. That was who you were to meet, the guy with the same shirt. Yeah.
And I go over and he says, Harry, sit down. You want a drink? I said, yeah, I have a beer. Oh, I have a drink. So he pulls out this flask. They only had setups in Dallas at that time. You had to buy a
Bottle.
or whatever you were going to mix with the drink. That was your setup. And you had to join that club. And then you pulled out your flask and you put whatever you're going to do. And he mixed me up what they call the purple something. And grape juice and this 200% alcohol. Terrible
stuff.
Yeah, and he said, my name's Malcolm. I said, okay, Wallace. And that never dawned. I didn't know who he was or what he was. And he said, I'm going to introduce you to people around here, and you're going to be running a safe house. We'll show you where it is and everything. And is everything all right with you? Yeah, oh yeah. So I switch over to beer and Pearl beer. I remember that. And in comes Tippett. That's where I met Tippett.
Was he in uniform?
Uniform, big gun hanging down off his hip. And we got to talking. I find out he's in the 17th Airborne. I'd been with 508th, which is right in St. Fort Bragg, the same place. We knew a lot of things, so we became immediate friends that way. The paratroopers were that way, you know. And they said, well, we're going to another place. You'll meet more people over there. And we go over to the Carousel Club. Go up these stairs to a landing and then up another set of stairs, all red and black. And curtain spreads, and then we get let in. There's a girl there, she sits us down. There's a whole place has got lots of people in it. One morning, later on, I find most of them are cops off duty. It was the Carousel Club. And he said, we wanted to meet Jack. Jack Rubenstein. And I remember meet him. And I won't tell the story what he wanted me with doing. And he took me into the back room and showed me these girls.
Did he have one of his girls give you a welcome?
Yes. Yeah, she sat right in front of me, and I sat up on the desk. And he sat like this watching.
What a guy! What a guy!
So that was, yeah. Anyway, might as well say it, BJ, you know.
Yes.
Little then, and so that was great. I enjoyed that. And, you know, takes me out and introduced me to a few other people. I don't remember who they were even. And he says in the morning, Tippett's going to come and pick you up. He's going to take you to the hotel right now, which was the Cabana. Cabana.
Cabana.
What?
Yeah, Cabana.
Cabana.
Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, that's how it.
Rod.
Take me to the hotel. It's out Simmons Freeway, and they set me there, set me up with a room there, and I end up with my. The next morning, come and get me. Tippett does. He takes me and drives me over to Holland Avenue. It's a couple of miles away, I guess. And we go to inside the place, and it's all just crummy. This had been a coach house at one time, good size garage. And they've got cubicles in there. He said, this is a safe house, people stay here. And you get the apartment. The apartment was 5 closets maybe. And it was big enough for me, and you know, a size of 5 closets, good sized closets. And that's my place to stay. And then there's these cubicles where the guests stay. There's 4 or 5, 4 of them.
Rod, what was the location? Where was this in Dallas?
It was an Oak, and just down the hill, 4 buildings. I can't remember the address now. Oak on Fletch. God, my memory's gone.
It'll probably come back. That's okay. Keep going.
Well, anyway, God dang, that bothers me. But
Tippett was getting you set up for the safe house, which was in terrible
up the driveway.
Yeah.
And then the big garage, and then he leaves me there and says, straighten the place up. You'll be having clients within a week. And so I cleaned the place up and I fixed it, and
was this around the 14th of November?
oh no, this is in April.
In April. Okay, go ahead.
Early.
Way back, yeah.
The fair is going on at Fair Park at that time, and it don't have anything to do with me, but oh, and the other man that we had met was Miranda, Jake Miranda. He was going to be my handler for DISC, and I had met him at with Wallace. See, I'm losing these things.
That's fine, Rod.
Yeah, and so he came along afterwards, and I said, "You need somebody to help you clean." I brought a guy, helped me clean the place out, and everything got it pretty good. Cleaned it and got some furniture from it wasn't a Goodwill, one of those thrift shops, and fixed it up good, pretty nice. Got the water running good, got everything working, and it was a week later they brought me my first client, and that was a man that he was a Latin man, about 40 years old, and he'd been out doing something, and you don't ask. He comes in, he sleeps there, he stays there a week, and he was gone. I went and got his food and everything, stuff like that. But this Rubenstein told me he'd get me a job. I had a nursing diploma by then, and I went down, got registered right there in Dallas. It wasn't very difficult at that time as an RN, and they put me to work at Jack Ruby knew this guy that gambled to him, Dr. Sparkman, who was chief of surgeons at St. Anne's Hospital. He got me into Baylor University Hospital, great big operating room, 30 operating rooms in the suite, and at Baylor. And I did, I worked 3 to 11 in the afternoon to the night, and ran the safe house in the daytime, and came back and took care of whatever they wanted after midnight. And usually they're sleeping. And the safe house in the daytime, and I worked as a scrub nurse in the afternoon, and came back. That was the circle. That was what I did. And no problems whatsoever. I had all kinds of people coming through there. Usually they'd bring them in the morning, and right about 8 or 9 o'clock, and I couldn't take more than 4. They went to other safe houses too, which I was never supposed to know. I knew Tammy True had one, but that was the only one that I did know about. And they try to keep everything compartmentized. And every night I would walk on my way to work, every afternoon on my way to work, by about 1 o'clock. So I'd stop over at Jake Miranda's place. He owned a nightclub and a food place, a nice restaurant. And he was mob, plus he was DISC. And he'd feed me, have me talk to somebody on the phone or something about the safe house, John Rosselli or Del Graham out in Los Angeles. And then I'd walk to the club where I ate. Then I'd walk down to Baylor. It was about the same amount, 15 minutes on each walk. And I'd work the shift. I'd go have a few beers, come back. And it was all kinds of clients. So there was a lot of these, like we were talking about Reverend Bowen. He had a couple of names. He had a place down in Mexico where they trained young men, usually Mexican men or Latin men, to be sharpshooters, and sent them out on assassinations all over the world. And some of them would come and stop into my safe house, and they'd be there a day or so, and then he'd come and get them and take them down to Laredo, Texas, and whatever they did from there, I don't know. But that was the life of the safe house. That's how I got into all that stuff. And
so activity began to increase as you approached the November?
Yes, very heavy. Now, I was only there until November 15th, I think it was. And they told me I had to get out. They put me back up in the Cabana hotel. And I was not to go back there until they said I could be. They were going to renovate the thing they told me. Well, that didn't turn out what it was. I went back over one day to get the vehicle that they had given me, and the door was open. It looked like a war room for an operation of some...
Lots of weapons, for example, maps, communication devices, and the like.
Looked like something I would have seen at Fort Bragg.
Yeah.
Yeah. With the maps on the wall and everything else.
Unbeknownst to you, it was all related to the assassination.
I believe it was, yes. I can't say that to this day. You never...
Yeah, right. Because you're not being told, and you're not asking because it's not the thing to do.
It had to have been. But I didn't know there was going to be an assassination at this time.
Right, of course, yeah. You weren't in the loop.
Right. So I go back to my schedule, working and doing everything. And it's the 15th to the 21st. Well, I'm going out looking for some pussy. Sorry.
Okay. We've heard the word before, Rod.
After work, I go out hunting a little bit.
Right.
And
now we could tell
companionship.
Yeah, we can tell.
Yeah, there we go. That's good.
Yeah. See, you're a good-looking dude right now. We can imagine when you were young. You must have been tearing it up.
I was, and I go down from work at midnight. It's about midnight when I get out of there. I head downtown, and I go down to the Colonial Club, which was Wyman or Wiseman or something. He owned the place, a Colony Club. It was across the street from catty corner from the Carousel. Now, there was a gal in the Carousel that I knew, Alice Alexander. She was the hostess. So I'd been
friendly.
Talking to her on the phone.
Friendly.
Yeah. And I was looking for her. I was hoping I'd get lucky there that night. This is the 21st before I go. But I see, of all people, I see John Rosselli in the
That must have shocked the shit out of you, Rod.
Yeah, well, yeah. As usual, we acknowledge each other like this, but we don't talk to each other.
Right.
He's up in the back talking to this Abe that owns the club there, and he goes like that, kind of acknowledge me. And I look around. Alice isn't in there, so I know I'm not going to get lucky there. I leave there, and I went where there's a few other girls I knew, and I could have had $1,000 in my pocket. I couldn't have gotten laid if I wanted to that night.
Too much was going on.
Yeah. So I take the taxi.
You really were oblivious of most of what it was about.
Well, the Coca-Cola convention was in, Pepsi-Cola convention was in town. Right. And everybody was, all the big players were in town. And all these ladies were a little busy.
Yeah, like Richard Nixon?
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, I saw him later on. And I go back to the cabana. I go into my room, and the room next to me is Spanish, and they just go on rattling away and playing loud music. So I go out and I ask the girl who's had her back to me. I said, "Can you get them tone that down a little bit?" And she looks around. "Oh, Roderick, how are you?" And this is Esperanza Martinez.
Yes.
So she's a
very dangerous.
She's a hit lady that used to make love to a man and stick a
9-inch hairpin. Yeah.
In his ear and
kill him.
Yeah. She said, "Would you like a smoke?" And I take a puff for marijuana. I never like the stuff. You always do. And so I said, "Can you get them to shut up a little bit?" "Okay, we'll do it for you." There's 4 or 5 guys like bees around honey, you know, and
sure.
It's her and the Frank Sturgis's girl are in the middle of it, some other girl. And I go into my room, which is it's on the ground floor. Mine's right next to them. So I open the window and it is stifling hot. Put the fan on. They didn't have air conditioning.
Yeah.
And you can't sleep like in that type of night. So I sit at the table and write letters, which I'm famous for. And I'm sitting there, and then I shut off the light and just sit there. And it's about, I won't say what time. It was after midnight, well after my mind. Big, long limousine pulls up, and out gets Richard Nixon. You can't miss that nose from the profile ever. Right. He's got a camel hair coat on, and a big bruiser gets out, and he's standing next to my window smoking. And Nixon goes in there. First time in the night that the place has been quiet. 15 minutes, they're in there, and they hear a low mumble of talk, but no, you couldn't understand it. And they're talking, and out he comes, and who's with him is Frank Sturgis was with him, and that's his girl that's in there. Frank Sturgis's girl was Lawrence, or whatever her name was.
Rita Lawrence?
Yeah, she was in with.
She'd been a mistress of Fidel as well.
Yeah, yeah, and they were right next to me all that night, and so finally I go to sleep, and in the morning, well, nothing really happens in the morning. I get up, I go to get a book that I'd ordered, Fawn Brody's.
Did you even know the motorcade was going to take place the following day?
Yeah, but I didn't care about that, you know.
Yeah, politics, right?
It was nothing to me. I didn't have any interest in going to see Nixon or anything else. And I went to get that book, Fawn Brody's No Man Knows My History, about Mormon prophet Joseph Smith. I had that ordered. So I walked down, I took the bus down, Stemmons Freeway down to right near Daly's Plaza, got out there, went the other way, and then down. Oh, I had an appointment the next day with Jake Miranda and John Rosselli. Well, that's the important thing of this whole thing. Yeah, I had an appointment with them at Baylor University's cafeteria, a little low cafeteria in the back of the hospital.
And what time was that, Rod?
My appointment was 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock in the morning.
And I'm funny about appointments. I like to be right on time or a little early.
Yes.
And he, Miranda's going to be waiting there for me, and so is Rosselli. And I go get my book. I'm 2 minutes late. I'm looking at my watch. I come in there 2 minutes late. I come down the stairs, and this is in a well. There's a big well.
Stairwell.
Yeah, and this is where Hoke and I sort of differ. He thinks that Rosselli left that area during the time we were there between 10 and 1 o'clock, which he did not. And
You were there. Richard wasn't. That's just a mistake.
Yeah, I'm either a liar or
Richard just made a mistake, Rod.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not saying he's a great.
He's a good guy. Yeah.
I'm not knocking him in any way. Just that we have a difference on this.
Right.
Going by this, whoever files is, he's going by him on this.
Oh.
Yeah.
Files, I think, well, we'll come to that, but I believe he discredited.
I don't even know anything about the man. I know that he didn't know half the people he said he did because I knew them.
Yeah.
And I would have seen him in Chicago. But it's good if you're in prison. That's a good thing to say because it gives you some clout.
Right. Gives you a little protection.
For the rest of them, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I guess. I'm not saying he may be the nicest guy in the world. I don't know. But I'm not. You go killing a judge, you're not the nicest guy in the world.
So you're there with Rosselli in the stairwell at Baylor.
Right. I come down, and I'm 2 minutes late, and I said, I make a point of telling him, I'm 2 minutes late. He said, oh, gosh. And Rosselli's got a bunch of money in front of nickels and quarters. And a local call was 5 cents in Dallas at that time. And there's a bank of telephones right across from us. And Rosselli's going back and forth to the phone. Now this is not like Hoke says in it. He's taking it from me, but he got it wrong. The bank of telephones was probably 10 or 11 of them, right in a row, wooden telephones, and full booths with the door that open and close.
Yeah.
And they were in a line, and then came the stairs, and you had to go up 12 stairs to the main cafeteria. You're down in the hole, and tables are down there. And so he's going to the phone, and coming back and sitting and writing things and talking with both fools and kings and everything else. And
were there others there with you and Rosselli?
no, just Rosselli, myself, and Jake Miranda.
Okay.
That was my handler. And every now and then, Rosselli would get up, go over and a handful of quarters and nickels and go make a call, be gone maybe 10, 15 minutes. Then he'd come back, then he'd go back. So it wasn't a steady thing. It was intermittent.
Yeah.
And it came time. Well, we were there for 3 hours, 4 hours, I guess.
You're talking about from 2 minutes after 10 you were there until, say, 1 o'clock. That's the time after the assassination, and Rosselli's making phone calls.
Right. And so I'm definitely an alibi for Rosselli.
Yeah.
I know that he was there. I know him from Los Angeles. Later on, I was in business with the man.
On the other hand, who he was calling and where they may have been and what they may have been doing, you were unaware completely.
I know about one. He came back and said Del Graham, who was also DISC and owned trapeze acts and stuff like that out in California. And he was on the phone to Rosselli during the hit, evidently, and he had a heart attack.
He had a heart attack.
Oh, yeah. And that's the people came on the phone and told Rosselli. He came back and told us that he'd been talking to Del Graham. That was about 12:25 probably, right about that time.
Well, that's just before the assassination at 12:30.
Yeah. So, and he has a heart attack, and that we were all talking about that at that time.
You know where he was physically when he had? Where was he?
In Tarzana, California, right across.
Oh, he wasn't even in Dallas.
No, at the there's a phone booth, and I know exactly where it is, where the street that divides Reseda and Tarzana.
Okay.
That's where he was, right in that
Okay.
telephone.
Okay.
Probably gone now, but and he had his heart attack, and some woman got on the phone to told Rosselli, the man had a heart attack, and then they got heard the ambulance was coming.
Right. The EMT.
Either that or the police or somebody.
Now, were you still at the cabana then, so and were you doing any supervising there, or were you just there?
No, I was just there.
So, but you met a lot of people who were there, including, of course,
Yeah.
Frank Sturgis. Said you met Sturgis before?
Yeah, I knew Sturgis personally from down at JM Wave. I'd met him, and
Yeah.
Morellis and David Morellis, and
Right.
Sturgis, myself, and we'd all done dirty deeds together.
Yeah.
The statute of limitations are all gone. I don't care. So we went to an armory and stole a bunch of rifles one time.
Yeah.
All kinds of things.
Yeah. I understand Sturgis wanted to have confirmation from a high-ranking party to all of this, and that's why Nixon came by to assure him.
I believe that. I believe you're right on that. All this is conjecture because I was interested in only one thing in that.
Yeah.
And
Which was other than political, not political.
It was all instinctive.
Yeah, right. More elementary.
Yeah. And,
But you notice the cabana seemed to fill up with.
it was all filled. It was completely filled. You couldn't get a room there. The parking lot was full. There was no rooms in the cabana. There was no rooms anywhere in Dallas, anywhere, especially downtown at that time. That was the.
How many? Who did you get? Who did you meet there at the cabana thereafter?
Well, I ran into Esperanza Martinez. But I wasn't going to go to bed with her.
Right. That was a bit of a dangerous thing to do.
Yeah, people didn't get up when they saw.
Rod, Don has to depart for another interview. I wanted to invite him if he has a question now before he has to depart. Don, would you like to ask Rod a question?
Yeah, Rod. I don't know if you can answer this or not, and I hadn't read any part of your book, so pardon my ignorance.
Lucky you.
I'm going to get the Kindle edition though for sure. But
Okay.
Okay, so you said you worked for the DISC.
Yes, Defense
So,
Industrial
Security Command.
So, okay, so
out of Muscle Shoals, Indiana, Alabama.
so how involved were they with the Dallas Police Department?
Who knows? They became the National Security Agency. It was part of the Park Police at that time. So I have no idea. I didn't have any truck with that higher part of the actual ice compartment.
On the other hand, Officer Tippett was playing an important role in coordinating events before the shooting.
Yes, you're right there.
Would you imagine, Rod, that he was taken out because he knew too much? Do you know anything about, when he
I think that was probably an accident. That's my thought. I don't think that he was taken out on purpose.
But there were two men who shot him, with two different makes of ammo, and it was from automatics.
I heard so many stories on that.
Rod, is he wasn't shot with revolver ammunition, and they had to replace it to try to frame Oswald, even though he was already at the Texas Theater.
See, I heard all these things, and it gets so convoluted that I have no idea.
Did you meet Oswald?
No, I had seen him around downtown Dallas, and I'd seen him with Ruby, but I never knew who they were. And people had told me they were both homosexuals, so I didn't,
Yeah.
Rosselli told me, stay away from the guy. He's a little on the fruity side.
Tell me about when Mac Wallace, after became drunk and started talking about his role.
That's about a week later, maybe 5 days or a week later. Everybody's become patriotic that was cursing and saying what a rotten son of a bitch Kennedy was the day before. They're all patriotic with flags up. And,
right, to show as though they had no motive for him to be dead, right?
Hypocrites, everybody was a hypocrite after that. Even Miranda would have.
But wasn't it even a cover for them, Rod? A cover for them that they wouldn't take satisfaction? So why would anyone suspect them? They thought he was a good guy after all.
Guilt, something, who knows?
Yeah.
The stores were closed and everything else. I go over and eat at Jake Miranda's restaurant. A lot of mobsters were in there eating. When I say a lot, maybe 10. And in back there were cubicles where they gambled.
When was this now? After the assassination?
Yeah, about within a week.
Okay.
I'm not sure just how many days. So I go in, I'm going to get my meal and then going to go to work. And Miranda says, look, Mac's in there, Mac Wallace, says he's in there making a lot of noise. He's drunk, this is a skunk. And you know him fairly well. How about seeing if you can get him to go out of my place? And he's talking this and that, and nothing about the Kennedy thing or anything, but just obnoxious.
Yeah.
So I go over and talk to him. I said, hey, let's go over to, I said Wanda's place, which was another place, and they had a lot of girls over there. So okay, let's get my truck in. That's the last thing I wanted to do was drive with him.
Right.
We'll go.
He's drunk as a skunk, my God, and you turned over that truck way back when. You knew what it was to have an accident.
Through that once, yeah. And I says, let's go, no, let's not go to Wanda's. Let's go to, and he named the place in Fort Worth. So off we go down to Fort Worth.
So he was driving. He
did pretty good, though. He was straight line.
So what was his car? Was it a Caddy?
No, it was a pickup. Good old boy
pickup truck.
Yeah, pickup truck, big one with the rifles on the back of the.
Okay.
That's what a regular good old boy thing. And don't ask me to make. I don't remember.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And we get there. He knew this motel. We pick up a case of Pearl beer, and he got some of that grape juice he liked, and some that Everclear. That's the name of it. Everclear was the beer, the booze he was drinking. And we went over this motel that was run by two Mexican women that didn't speak English at all. And he knew them. We went in there and we sat down and drank. We did a pretty good job of drinking. I'm drinking beer, he's drinking that Everclear and grape juice. Then it was just Everclear. Then he's really skunked up. And I quit drinking about I drank a 6-pack, I guess. And then he starts spouting off. Of course, we got laid and we had a good time. Everybody's naked and bottles everywhere, the whole thing. And she starts talking about how we killed Kennedy. Aren't you glad we got rid of the son of a bitch and all this stuff? I'm just listening.
Not a prudent thing to do, but there it was.
Yeah. I started putting 6 and 6 together. I'm getting 19, and this gum wrappers, Kotex wrappers in the bathroom, and toilet paper, and I start going to the bathroom writing down what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
and that's where what's in my book comes from. And I got a couple of things wrong in there. I'll grant you that. Afterwards, I realized that. Like Nicoletti, I put him down as somebody else in one place. And
as much as you can, Rod, reconstruct what he told you.
Well, everything, I can't remember the people's names now anymore. You have to go through the book now and
But he was talking about the shooters in different locations.
Okay, shooter's Loy Factor, he said he had. Loy Factor was the main shooter he talked about. Actually doing the shooting, right? From
Where was Loy Factor located?
what they called the nest. What they called the nest. He was where they
Sniper's nest, the sniper's nest on the sixth floor.
Where everybody goes to look at it today.
He said there was an actual shooter in the sixth floor window.
Yeah, he said Loy Factor did the shooting from there.
Go ahead.
He was there, and Esperanza Martinez was running the whole show with a whatever it is.
You mean in the Daltex?
Hope calls
I
her
mean in the book depository. In the book depository.
Hope calls the walkie-talkie. I don't know. I think it was one of those telephones that looked like that, and it was a big telephone. I think that's what it really was, but I'm not sure. But anyway, they had a communications device of some sort.
Right.
That was holding everybody together. And Oswald was up there with them. The four of them were together in that one place. But Oswald was in a trance, is how he said it. It could have been hypnosis, anything else. He said Oswald didn't fire anything.
Where was he claiming Oswald was located?
Right by the elevator at the point where that nest area was.
On the sixth floor.
I've never been there, so I don't
He had
know.
him on the sixth floor.
Yeah, the sixth floor.
Go ahead.
And that's where he claimed they fired. And he said the son, as his words, the son of a bitches didn't hit
Couldn't hit anything.
apostle. He didn't hit apostle, whatever apostle is. And he said, nobody hit anything from his window, evidently. That's what he said. Now, I don't know.
Yeah.
Then he said they went up to, they had all worked it out up at Red Rocks in Colorado. They had done a setup deal up in Red Rocks at Colorado near Denver.
With the angles and distances.
Practiced the situation up there.
Yeah.
And he described it pretty well, what they had done. I haven't any inkling about what that was. But the Roger Craig was named. I didn't say that Roger Craig was in it like the other fellow said.
Richard, yeah. What? No. Oh, right. The reviewer. Right, I get it. Yeah.
I just wrote down what McNaughton had said.
He mentioned Roger Craig in some context.
Right. He didn't say he shot him or anything else.
Yeah.
He was in place to do a shooting. He said that a guy from California that they caught and looked at his driver's license and had the little X's on his hat. I know his name. I know the guy. I can't think of it now.
Sure.
He was set up to do it, and he got locked out of the door somehow. And that's how he got into the building where he got arrested. And Holt and
Harrelson
and Rogers are the three tools. And definitely Holt told me that too. And Rogers, I don't talk to. I didn't like him.
But they didn't shoot, did they?
They were set up to shoot if they had to from the railroad yard somewhere. They weren't in the thing, and they went to that after the shooting.
Right. They climbed into a boxcar. Yeah, it was loaded with ammo and explosives and weapons. And I think they were being set up to be fallback patsies. But go ahead.
Okay, then he said there was somebody near the sewer at the end of the railroad bridge there.
Yeah, the above ground sewer.
And he did fire, he said.
I believe that was Sturgis.
That may have been. I have no idea. Like I say, I'm
trying to reconstruct.
5 miles away.
Right, sure, of course.
And
you talk about the Daltex?
Yeah. Then he said he named the people at the behind the fence, and I have it in there. And I can't remember what I wrote. But it's all there.
In the top of the county records building.
Okay, there was that cop, another cop. He's still alive, I think. It's not Roger Craig. It's another one.
Did he mention it?
Something like that.
Weatherford, Harry Weatherford.
Yeah.
He was a deputy sheriff. He was a deputy.
He was put up on that roof, and he was also supposed to shoot. And whether he didn't, I don't know. But anyway, I wrote all these things down, and I put them in the thing, and I've been sort of shutting it out of my mind lately. And I'm sorry.
No, Rod. Let me just run a couple by you.
Wait, let me tell you something first.
Go ahead.
I had decided not to give anybody any more interviews at all. I sort of like you. That's why you're getting it. But
I'm so glad.
I'm so poor.
I'm so glad.
I'm so poor at this. I hate
Let me put something up here. I want to get your opinion about it.
Okay.
Okay, here. I have inferred it was Harry Weatherford on the top of the county records building, and I take it you're not opposed to that. That sounds right to you.
That sounds good to me. But as I say, everything I've got is hearsay.
I know. I'm just interested in your
Nobody
impression.
can put me down as this new book does. I'm saying that it almost says like I was there doing it.
Oh, I know.
Helping everybody do it, you know.
These are my candidates. Then we got this Jack Lawrence. He was an Air Force expert. He appears to have been inside the triple underpass and fired the shot that went through the windshield and hit Jack in the throat. Did you ever hear about him?
That would have been the guy, I think, at the end of by the sewer there, if it were anybody.
Well,
I don't know. I never heard of him. I've never seen him before.
Okay. Did you ever hear, about shooting from this the window to the broom closet in the uranium mining company that was a CIA asset in the Dow Tex here at Circle there on the left?
No, I never heard that.
You ever hear of Nestor Tony Escadro, who's an anti-Castro Cuban in the Dow Tex?
I know who he is, but I didn't know he was anywhere near there.
Okay. They even have a monument down here in Little Havana in Miami, Rod.
He was a hell of a soldier, I know that.
He must have been.
Yeah.
And of course, what about Roscoe White?
All right, there's one that I believe I shot with him many times out there at the creek with Tippett and Wallace both. Yeah. We shoot an old refrigerator and a couple of cars out there early in the morning, and he's a hell of a good shot. That's all I know about him.
Okay.
He was a tough guy.
Here's Frank Sturgis.
Sturgis, yeah.
Some think he was the best shot in the world at the time.
He was okay, but I shot.
Were the others better, actually, Rod?
What?
Were the others better shooters, you think?
Well, yeah, I shot next to him, so I mean, it was.
Okay. He wasn't as great as he may have been put up to.
And one rifle, he could. He wouldn't get Maggie's draws on every one of them. He'd hit 4 or 5 of them.
Oh!
And
of course, Mac Wallace was Mac was one of the
shot. Excellent shot.
And he was in the book depository.
He was right there with Oswald and the girl and Loy Factor.
Have you ever seen this photograph? That Richard believes was Mac Wallace actually at Skull and Bones at Yale with.
That's what he says. That's what he says. But he sees Rosselli in the Daily Plaza in a cloud of smoke. And
of course, he was at Baylor with you on the phone.
I know, I was sitting across the table from him. So.
Did you ever hear anything about George Herbert Walker Bush having been in Dealey Plaza or his son W?
I've heard it, but I don't know. And the picture certainly was that Hook
Yeah.
brings up is certainly because I couldn't.
Did you run into any of these CIA guys? Did you see David Morales? Or this actually isn't Morales. This is another guy.
Morales was at that Nixon meeting the night before.
He was at the culmination.
He did very well. Went to his funeral
At the Cabana.
No,
Did you know anything about Lucian Conan? It's very ironic that this prominent assassin was photographed. See in the middle panel there, Rod, that right above JFK's head, turning the corner from Houston to Maine. Unbelievable.
But who knows whether those photographs are real or not?
Right. Now, I identified George Herbert Walker Bush in this photograph in front of the book depository. And
very well could be. I just don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I don't have any doubt. Then we have, of course, the three tramps.
No, that's Rogers. That's right. You can't.
Rogers, Nelson, and Chauncey.
No one could mistake that little torturing bastard.
Rogers.
Nobody could mistake that bandy walk.
And this turns out to be
Harrelson, the same thing.
This turned out to be Edward Lansdale walking past him. Rod, did you ever hear anything about Lansdale?
I know of Lansdale, of course.
Yeah.
I know. I went to classes on Operation Northwoods, so I knew a little bit about him. And,
very good.
Yeah.
Now, Richard did a lot of work about the man in the doorway and the window in the Dow Tex, and he has Nestor in the front and George Herbert Walker Bush behind him. And of course, then Lansdale's waiting to speak to Bush after, but none of that ever came to your attention.
No, but it's quite a choir and a great orchestra.
Yeah, I love it. Larry, I know you've been eager to ask questions. Why don't you give Rod your best?
They got him.
Oh, Larry's had to go too.
Yeah, Larry turned in on us.
Oh, that's a bloody shame. Gary, I'll bet you have some questions for Rod.
I just think it's amazing. So you said that Richard Nixon and Frank Sturgis were in the same room?
Yeah, and Dave Morales.
Wow.
I didn't bring him in. He was there too.
That's pretty stunning, isn't it, Gary? That's pretty stunning.
I think Morales disappeared before this assassination. He wasn't actually in on shooting or anything.
He would later, when he was drunk, talk about getting the little bastard in Los Angeles and taking out, the son of a bitch in Dallas. I mean, Morales would be fairly open about it.
Anything that Morales was in on, anything that happened, Morales was in on it more so than Frank Sturgis, and they were both in on everything.
Did you happen to know Ed Butler by any chance?
No, but I know of him.
All right. You're any involvement with the auctioneer group out there?
No.
Okay.
You never spent time in New Orleans, did you?
In New Orleans, it was just Guy Bannister I knew. I knew the doctor that Ferry was involved with.
Dr. Auctioner? Alden Auctioner?
No.
He was high up, Gary. He was keeping himself separate from...
We're talking different language. I call him Auctioner. Auctioner was the way I pronounced his name. That's why I didn't recognize it. Yeah, well, I know who he was, and I know he was involved in Topeka, Kansas, in all those horrors that were going on with Cameron up in McGill University and that CIA stuff that was going on.
Talking about vaccinations? Talking about vaccinations?
Hypnosis and all that stuff.
Auctioner was into that, hypnosis.
Alter. Yeah, I don't know much about it, but I know the rumors.
Rod, to me, it's striking that the two individuals I know who were involved in one way or another in the assassination, you and Chauncey Holt, whom I also met personally, both had this background with the circus or, and with promoting, making IDs at the LA Stampin' Stationery Store.
He was going to teach me to fly one time.
I bet. He was a versatile guy.
He's a hell of a guy for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, he impressed the hell out of me.
What a
Rod.
brain. What a brain. that guy
My
had.
God, very.
Yeah. Yeah, that was very fascinating that you and he were in the false ID business.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was just weird. But
Yeah.
we followed each other's lives in a lot of ways. He was about 10 years older, I guess.
Okay. One quick question. What did you think that when you heard the news that the president had been killed? What did you think?
I was scrubbing surgery when I heard it. I was up in the operating room. We were doing a pneumonectomy, the removal of a lung. And some girl, one of the girl circulating nurses come in and whispered, the president's been shot. So he didn't say he got killed at that time.
Yeah.
And, it was, it really didn't bother me one way or the other. I didn't,
You didn't have any hard feelings. You weren't a political person.
yeah, I didn't have any access to grind with that president. I didn't like what he did about Cuba. I was a little irritated over that. And what they did to Carlos Marcello, shipping him down to South America like they did.
Dropping him in the middle of the jungle.
Yeah, him was a rotten son of that Bobby Kennedy is this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just didn't. I went like my usual trip down to get to the Egyptian Lounge. I went in there, and two salesmen for Pepsi Cola made room for me to sit down. And like I say, the night before I couldn't have got laid with $1,000 bill, and $2,000 wouldn't have got me anything that night.
Rod, confirm that when Mac was talking about the assassination, he acknowledged that the hit had been called for by Lyndon Johnson.
Well, and that's what I was told by. That's what Malcolm Wallace did say. He said that Johnson was behind it all.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my.
Other people put up the money, but Johnson was behind it.
Yeah. Well, he forced himself on the ticket in 1960 to take out Jack and become president himself.
He's a smart, conniving bugger.
A real bastard.
Yeah.
All right.
Almost everybody said that.
Rod, you're a wonderful guy. I really appreciate your taking the time. Gary, is there any further word you'd like to ask before I thank Rod again and you close us out?
I think it's just fascinating, and I think you're a wonderful guest, and maybe we could have you on again real soon.
Well, you either believe me or you don't, and I don't give a damn one way or the other.
Rod, you're a sensation. I can't thank you enough.
I'll be having a dirt nap when.
Let me tell you something, Mr. McKenzie. We're pretty sharp here, and we were putting things together as you were talking, throughout the show.
It comes from here, I'm not giving it to him.
Yeah, we can tell.
Rod,
we're very, very sharp.
Rod, I can't thank you enough.
Well,
just terrific having you here as a guest.
but you wouldn't have liked me in those days.
Yeah, I bet you.
Well, people can't change, right? You've lived quite a life, Rod McKenzie.
Yeah. I'd like to have gone to the Carousel Club with you there a few times. So
everybody that was straight liked the Carousel Club.
All right,
Gary, why don't you take us out?
Yeah, this new JFK show number 193 with Mr. Rod MacKenzie. We thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Have a nice one.
Okay.